Hi, it's Elena from Financialdemics, where I give you the tips and the tools to manage your money, increase your savings and your income, and decrease your debt. And today we're talking about Biden's student loan initiative and how it's going to affect you and me. So I'm just going to jump into it because I don't know if you've been on social media ever since they declared Biden as president-elect. The memes for this $10,000 in student loan forgiveness has been so hilarious to me. And if I can find them, I'll go back and see if I can find the memes. I'll go ahead and drop them in the video so y'all can see what I'm talking about. But for me, it made me look more into his plan for student loans and really just dealing with this student loan crisis that we have here in the States. So the majority of the stuff actually came from his campaign website, so I will link it down below. So if you want to look at it yourself, you can take a look at it. But I'm going to add some of my opinions in the mix and you'll know the difference. But let's just talk about it so that we all understand, because I can tell you before I looked into it, I had no idea it was this, I had no idea that he had this many initiatives for student loans. So the first thing I am going to mention is the one thing that everybody has been talking about, which is this $10,000 in student loan forgiveness. And this is only for federal student loans. This is the first thing I want to mention, just because if you have a private student loan, it is not eligible, supposedly, under what he has said. But basically, like, due to what is going on right now, he does support the idea of forgiving $10,000 in student loans. But I want to put this out there, especially because of the memes that have been going around. Remember, there's different ways that he would have to go about doing that. One thing that we have to keep in mind is right now, whether or not the Senate is going to be a Democratic-led Senate or a Republican-led Senate is up in the air. But you should realize by now, if you have not already, typically when we have a Senate that is the opposite party, things get blocked. Like they don't get passed, they stall. And so that is something to keep in mind, because we still have to wait on the runoff race in Georgia to find out which way the Senate is going to be. Now, I also know that it could possibly be done through a stimulus package, because that is the way they were proposing it to be done earlier this year. But again, that also is based on whether or not, it passes all the way through, which party leads the Senate, because as we know, things can pass in the House and stall in the Senate. So keep that in mind. And then the third way that it can be done, or I've been hearing murmurings of, is the fact that it can be done through an executive order. The only thing that I would say about that is that there may be some challenges to the executive order. So there may be like some legal challenges that come behind that. So, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I definitely want to put that out there so you'll keep it in mind, and just know that even though he does support it, it's not a for sure thing, right? All right, so let's talk about some of the other legislations that he wants to present in order to help out with this student loan crisis. And y'all, I had to grab my laptop because it's a lot. He has a lot of initiatives, which I'm very impressed with, but it is a lot, and I just need reference close by. The first one I'm going to talk about is making public colleges and universities free for families who make under $125,000 a year. I am in support of this. We actually have this already set up in New York State. I think it's very helpful, because even though I am a big proponent of, if you don't want to go to college, don't go to college, but have a plan. So find a trade or work on a business or something. Have some type of plan. But there are some things that you want to do in life that require a degree, right? And I definitely believe that if that's what you want to do, you should go do it. I don't want nobody teaching my kids who don't have a degree. I don't want somebody who is my dentist or my doctor or whatever not having a degree. And then even me as an accountant, most of the stuff, I learned a lot hands-on, but I also learned a lot in school to give me that true basis. And you want your accountant to have a degree. Seriously. There's just certain career fields that require a degree. And so if that is what you're looking to do, right? I think it's great to be able to go for free if that's the case. Like, I wish this was around when I was going, okay? He also is looking to increase the amount of the Pell Grant for low and middle class income families, which I think is really important because with me, I have a kid who is in college, if you don't know, and when we looked at the Pell Grant numbers, like, even if one of us is not working, we still don't qualify, which, is not a thing that's like, oh, I want to qualify for the Pell Grant, but I do think it helps out a lot of families if it is increased, right? Because just because you make a certain amount of money, so let me just throw out a number, like, just in case you make $65,000 does not mean you can afford to send your kid to college. And I don't know if you've noticed, even these public schools now are higher in tuition. Like, the tuition is ridiculous for some of these public schools. And so typically, like, student loans, federal student loans may not even cover the cost of that. And so with this grant, which does not have to be paid back, it would be great if this grant could help out low to middle class income families. He also is looking to change the income-based repayment program. So before everything happened in 2020, so let's say 2019, even if you made a low amount of money and you signed up for the income-based repayment program, you could end up with a $0 payment, right? But interest is still accruing on that loan. And if you don't know anything about the interest on a student loan, I want you to remember this: it compounds daily. So it's not compounding daily right now, but remember, we're in 2019 on this example. It was compounding daily. So even though you had a $0 payment, you're still getting charged interest, which is making your student loan grow, right? In his proposal, if you make $25,000 or less a year, you wouldn't have to make payments on your undergraduate federal student loans. And those loans would not accrue interest, which is really a big deal. Also, if you make more than $25,000, then you would pay 5% of your discretionary income on your student loans, which is really big because that's not how it's set up now. And then after 20 years of regular payments, the remaining balance on the loan would be forgiven. So I think that is a great idea. I would like 10 years for the forgiveness, in my opinion. He also is looking for a way to improve the current loan forgiveness program for public servants. We all should know how hard it is for public servants at this point to get their loans forgiven. It's absolutely ridiculous. There are people who have done everything right and they're still getting denied for forgiveness and fighting to get their student loans forgiven. And so he's trying to make that process a little bit easier, and this is what his idea is. So basically, he wants to create a new program that would provide $10,000 relief for any undergraduate or graduate student loans in which the borrower actually performs some national or local community service. And this is up to $50,000. So for 5 years. So it'll be $10,000 per year, which is pretty dope in my opinion. I'm not sure exactly what the student loan forgiveness program amounts are right now, and I know there's different programs depending on the area you work in and things like that, but because I'm not in an area that gets forgiveness, but I think this is a great idea. I think It'll be helpful for a lot of people. And if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, I don't know if there is a program that would do a full 50,000. Maybe for like in the medical, maybe, but I'm not sure if that actually exists. He's also looking to create a Title I for post-secondary education. You'll have to research Title I. What I know about it is for schools that are in lower income communities who don't really have a lot of resources. He wants to do the same thing for colleges and universities. We do know that there are colleges and universities that are public that are not funded as well as some of our other colleges and universities. And so he's looking to be able to help with the funding to help students who go to those schools be able to finish their degree. Because I don't know if y'all know this, a lot of times too, when you look at the student debt numbers, I'm not saying that everybody doesn't finish their degree, but some people have student loans and they weren't able to finish their degree because they didn't have the funding. They didn't have enough money to complete school. So it's important to make sure that everybody is able to complete their degree if that's the direction in which they want to go into. So he's also looking to create a path from going to high school to either if you want to do like job training or learn technical skills or even go to a community college, which is great based off my comments I said earlier. Everybody doesn't need to go to college, but you do need a plan. And so the training to be able to find a viable career that you actually enjoy is important. And sometimes, at least I have encountered this because I have a child who has friends who want to do something, but they're just not sure exactly how the path to get there. And so it's important to make sure that that's easy and that's something that will happen without that struggle, especially if you know your parents don't know. He also wants to use work study funds to help with either on the job training or like helping in the community, which is a great idea. Just because for me, in my experience with work study, right, there was a few years in which I was offered work study, but it didn't really work for my schedule. But then I also known of others who, you know, you can apply for work study, and if everybody's applying for work study, there's only so many work study jobs, especially if you're at a college where most people are getting financial aid. And so in this case, you can be able to do either on the job training, which would work perfectly for me because I was actually working a job that is very similar to the field that I work in. Or if you are doing things in the community, that's a way for you to get those funds. And work study actually reduces the amount that you would owe because it helps you work off your tuition. And the last two, I'm actually going to kind of group them together in a way because they both are all about predatory student loans and lenders. He's looking to find a way to crack down on that when it comes to our veterans and the GI Bill, like making sure that they are not getting caught up with these predatory lenders in schools. And then he's also looking at a lot of these for-profit schools who have been issuing predatory loans to students. And I don't know if you've been listening for the last few years, there's been, I think, like 3 schools, maybe more, who have basically gone out of business and has been required to allow these students to be released from their student loans because their loans were predatory and the things that they promised through their education didn't come to fruition. So I think this is definitely a great one, especially as someone who works as an adjunct professor. We don't need nothing else putting these students in any more debt, especially when they're just really just trying to improve their way of life. I will mention that Joe Biden has some additional things he wants to do when it comes to education and support of our public colleges and universities. I'm not going to mention them in here because I really kind of wanted to focus strictly on that student loan side of things. But like I said, a link is below so you can check it out. So even though Joe Biden has an initiative for student loans, one thing that I want to mention to you is you do not want to necessarily depend on the government to help you pay down your student loan debt. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, right? These are things that he plans to do. But again, as I mentioned before, you still have to go through some type of legislation to get it done. And things have to be approved. And then also, you have to keep in mind, right, when bills are proposed, sometimes to get the people on the other side to agree to the bill, you got to take stuff out and add stuff in. And so you just never know if it's really going to fully benefit you in the end. So I will say, regardless of what happened, if you still have over $10,000 in student loans, you still want to create a plan for yourself to be able to pay those off. And I do know that currently with the federal student loans, there's currently no payments and no interest going on, which next week we're going to talk more about that, just so that you can understand what you should be prepared for when January 1st rolls around. So in the comments below, let me know, what would you prefer to see if it was your choice as far as ways to reduce or eliminate this student loan crisis? If this video has been helpful for you, please hit that like button. And if you're still here, I'm gonna need you to go ahead and subscribe so that you can get all the content that I'm uploading on a weekly basis. And I will see you next week with an all new video.